financial information. And with us, we have Councilor Schultz, Councilor Allen, myself, Rita Paniagua, and Driscoll, Councilor Driscoll, and Madam President Hudson.
Oh, wow, you got a nice list of colleges.
Yeah.
Awesome. First questioner. You joining us?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. All right. Would you like me to start, or?
Yes.
Okay. So what I have for you all is our I'm sorry.
It's okay.
My name is Amid Turner. I am Vice President of Scholarships and Student Supports and Executive Director for Say Yes Syracuse. What you all have before you is our year-end spending for the 2020-2021 school year. It is not a complete report because last year was a dynamic year. So what's missing from this is our persistence rates. Last year was dynamic in that there was a lot of movement in student enrollment. So for example, there were students that started last fall 2020 that we awarded that later withdrew. There were students in the spring 2021 semester that we awarded that later withdrew. There were students in the fall that withdrew and then returned in the spring, but they weren't captured on our reports. So we're still getting information from our college partners to make sure that what we have has integrity. But our spending,
is that typical?
No, the 2020 was the first that was a full year of COVID
Chaos, yeah.
You know, hybrid learning and things
But
like that.
that's what I was curious about. A lot of that is due to COVID and the chaos that it created.
That's exactly right. In fact, Commissioner, you see on the first page there, our spending was $885,415,000. We usually are a little over $1 million a year. What I will say is that there was a decrease in college enrollment nationwide.
Yeah.
And it was around the average of 20%. Ours was just over 15%. We saw a dip in enrollment.
Can I ask a quick question about those titles, enrollment versus receiving? So
Yes.
is that like accepted into the program, but then?
That is
Is it
correct.
actually-
So thank you for that question. Appreciate it. So what you'll see here on the first page is the different grant types that Say Yes offers. You have a choice grant. A choice grant goes to students that are attending a private partner college. We have over 100 private partner colleges. In order for a student to receive a choice grant, their family income has to be over $75,000 a year. So we had a number of students that had that. An opportunity grant is a grant for students that attend any of the public schools, SUNY, CUNY schools. And the condition of that grant is that students have to be receiving enough federal aid in the form of Pell Grants and enough state aid in the form of TAP grants to cover tuition. Tuition at SUNY schools is relatively cheap. Last year was $7,070. The maximum Pell Grant is over $6,000 and the maximum TAP grant is close to $6,000. But they get this opportunity grant because if you want to sleep in a bed and eat food, that costs money too. So to cover room and board and things like that. And it's for $3,000. An innovation we made, Commissioner, is it was $2,000, $1,000 a semester. We increased that to $3,000. So it's $1,500 a semester. And we executed that right in the middle of the pandemic in fall 2020.
So the students are encouraged to apply for everything they can, and then you would come in and suffice the balance of what's needed?
Yes.
Is that the model? Okay.
Yes.
So how do they, and this is a personal question, but I'm assuming that other parents may have the same question. So my son went to ITC, and so he was able to get money for Say Yes, but it was like he only got it for like one semester. And then because he did like a work program at his school, I guess he didn't qualify for the additional money because he was doing the work study program. But this is his first year in college, so we're trying to navigate the system. So for the following years, do the students have to reapply? Like, how does that work? Or is it just whatever they get that first year, that's what they'll get the rest of the years?
That's a great question. There's so many variables that go into students getting the SAS award. He doesn't have to reapply unless he's going to transfer to another school. I don't, without having enough information, I can't tell you exactly why he was awarded one semester and not the other. What I can say is, depending on the college, they have their own policies, right? The only thing we instruct colleges to do is that the grants have to go for educational purposes, and we don't send them directly to students. We send them to the college.
Right.
How they interpret that is how they interpret that. At some public colleges, if the tuition is covered, they will give the student a reimbursement, and then it's the student's responsibility to put that towards room and books or their fees or whatever. At some colleges, we will send the award, and they will automatically put it towards whatever the balance is.
Gotcha.
But you know, we just adhere to our policy and guidelines.
And then can they, so like students that are, you know, in their second, third year, how are they communicating with you guys going forward, being that they're not technically students of the school district any longer? Like, how can they communicate with you guys?
So when they complete our application, we communicate primarily through email. They also list their phone number, and if we're having a hard time getting in contact through email, we'll try to give them a call or a text. Text works better than calls. But the only time they really have to communicate with us is if they're going to transfer to another school, or if for whatever reason a student is having a go of it in the semester and they want to appeal because they're not meeting our student responsibilities, they can contact us that way too. And our student responsibilities are, you have to enroll full-time, you have to complete full-time, and each semester you have to have a 2.0 GPA. And we do that by semester because what we found in the early years is that, you know, if a student has a bad semester, we had a GPA requirement of a 2.0 overall. If a student has a bad semester, it's hard to get out that hole to bring your overall GPA up. So we said we're just going to go by semester.
That's cool.
If you all, commissioners,
We're counselors.
Mr. Turner.
yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Turner. He's a Nottingham graduate too. You knew that, Joe? Okay. Just so you know. You heard that, Tim, right? He's a Nottingham graduate, Mr. Turner.
Oh yeah.
So, just a quick question. You might have already said this, and if you did, just say I already said it, and we'll talk offline. But I wanted to know, with the process, with all these great, amazing, beautiful colleges and universities, how can other colleges be a part of Say Yes? Like, what is the criteria?
What's the onboarding
Yeah,
process?
yeah, what's the onboarding process?
So we just shifted that model on how we onboard colleges. Just recently in 2021, Say Yes to Education, the corporation dissolved its 501c3. So we now operate independently as a federation.
Okay.
So there's Say Yes in Syracuse, there's Say Yes in Buffalo. In Syracuse, we're now a program of the Central New York Community Foundation. In Buffalo, they're an independent entity. In Cleveland, they're an independent entity. And when we onboard colleges now, we'll take a recommendation. When we do take the recommendation, we ask for a referral to a influential person or a decision maker. We'll present them with Say Yes, our theory of change, which is to have wraparound supports in all the schools, to have experiential learning for all students, and et cetera. And then they take a look at our funding model, and if it's feasible for them, they would do that. So what's really contingent on the partnerships we have with private partner colleges is that if the family income is below $75K, the private partner college will guarantee the tuition, right? And if the income is above $75K, then we have a choice grant for $5,000. Part of a barrier that we've been having with some colleges is, you know, even before the pandemic, there were a lot of colleges that were struggling with or challenged with their endowments and what they could do for students.
Yeah.
What we did modify is we would ask colleges to do that for unlimited number of students, and we've modified that. So if a college says, okay, we could do this for 5 students a year, that's acceptable. And we're very proud of all the partnerships we have, and anything they could do for students is appreciated. We do want to move back to a model where it's unlimited, but we understand that, you know, especially after COVID, there's a huge challenge.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Any HBCUs, Mr. Turner?
We have a couple. We have Benedict College, we have Morehouse, and then there's 2 colleges we have, but they prioritize Guilford County. There's Bennett College, which is an all-girl HBCU, and then we have North Carolina A&T. The caveat to those partnerships is that they offer a limited number of scholarships to students that have an income of 75 or above, and they prioritize Guilford County, North Carolina. So I don't know the exact number of seats they have open, but let's just say it's 10. If they don't fill 10 with North Carolina students, then they open it up to Syracuse and Buffalo. Quite honestly, they haven't. We had one person go to Bennett, but other than that, they usually fill it up with Guilford County students.
So Benedict, Morehouse, Bennett, and who?
Benedict, Morehouse, Bennett,
A&T.
and
A&T.
North Carolina A&T. And I also should also mention Paul Quinn College in Texas is also a partner. We haven't had anyone go there, but they're an awesome school.
Who is it?
It's called Paul Quinn. So there's on that first page here, and for you all, the first page is this page here that has a grand total of our spending. I went through the Choice Grant and Opportunity Grant. The tuition award is for students that aren't getting any, they're either not getting enough federal and state aid to cover tuition, or there's a gap. And then you'll see their tuition covered by TAP and Pell, and there's $0 there. Those are largely students that go to OCC, but they're also students that they're all students that go to public schools. And if they're, you know, if they're not living on campus, or the school is not reporting that they live on campus and they have enough TAP and Pell to cover tuition, they're not getting an award from Say Yes. If you go to the second page there, you could breeze through this. This just shows our spending by college. And you'll see the first column is the college itself. The second column is total Say Yes award. The third college is number of students enrolled, and the fourth college is the students receiving a Say Yes award. So just to give you an example, we could go down to Cayuga College, right? There's 7 students attending there, but only one of them got a Say Yes award. And the reason why is because 6 of those students had enough TAP and Pell to cover tuition, and according to Cayuga College, they were not living on campus. We do have a provision for students that are not living on campus but are in campus affiliated housing or in an apartment. All they have to do is provide us with a lease agreement. And what we found, especially at Oswego and Buff State and things like that, students to defray the cost of college will get an apartment and bunk up 6 to a bed or whatever. I don't know what they do, but they try to make it as cheap as possible. And then the last page you have here, it shows what we've been able to leverage. So our policy is that we are last dollar scholarship. So what that means is they have to complete a FAFSA application, every student. If they're going to school in New York State, they have to complete a TAP application, every student. Our award kicks in after those things have been applied towards tuition. So what you see there, which should be highlighted, is in total aid, we've been able to leverage over $15 million. And like I said in the beginning, on average, we usually award a little over $1 million a year, and the leverage is usually $18 million. But last year was a particularly volatile year as far as student enrollment goes, given COVID and the restrictions that were put in place. That leverage shows, you'll see the columns below, it shows what students were awarded in Pell, what they were awarded in TAP, Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, institutional aid, tuition-specific aid, HEOP, which is Higher Education Opportunity Program, and Education Opportunity Program. And there's also some other aid there. The colleges, that has no effect on us, and if the college decides to report that to us, we ask for it, but it's not required for our colleges to report that. So if they report it, it's great, we include the number. But what you see right there does not reflect actually what their students are getting in other aid. I would be remiss to say, I once got asked a question from a teacher, well, if Say Yes is covering everything, why would a student look for other aid? Because we don't count that. So if they get a scholarship from their church, if they get a scholarship from Nike or Adidas or whatever the case, that doesn't go into our formula on what we're gonna award the student.
And to that question, do you help these students find those other awards? Like, do they come to you, say yes, you're approved for our program, and then, like you said, FAFSA, TAP, Pell, or before you get there?
So yes, we do. We're a two-person Army right now. What we do is we try to leverage every resource in the community. What you all, I'm sure you all know, is that our community is rich with resources. So we're not trying to recreate the wheel. We partner with On Point for College, Hillside, any really college access program. We direct students every year. The Syracuse City School District has a FAFSA completion night. They partner with New York State Financial Aid Administrators Association, so we'll direct them there. And then on a one-on-one basis, when we have the capacity, if we could help students complete a FAFSA, or if we could just do education around financial aid and what everything means, we'll do that too. I think that's it.
I got a couple of questions.
I knew it. he was looking like I could see him going.
We always waiting. Did you get his questions answered yet?
It's good to see you, Mayor. So as you send these kids to college, do you follow them in terms of, first of all, talk to us about the graduation rate in terms of where they go and do their, what percentage graduate, right? Second, do they stick around here in the community, or have they been outside and decide to go somewhere? Because I know Syracuse is gold, right? So talk to me about that. And then here in the list, I see that so far you have 786 to date that have
That was enrolled last year, yes.
Okay, so this was just last year.
Yeah, this was just 2020, 2021.
Okay, not the whole total since the beginning.
In total, since the beginning, it's been over 5,000 students that were enrolled.
Okay.
Less than half of them graduated from college.
Less than half of them, okay.
Less than half. So to answer the first part of the question, we follow them to the extent that we can. So our scholarship lasts for 4 years, 8 semesters. What I'll say is nationally, it takes students, on average, it takes students more than 4 years to complete their degree. It takes them 5 to 5.5 years. What happens with us is after they're eligible for those 4 years, we don't necessarily keep up with what they're doing. So that graduation rate could be higher. We're just looking at a 4-year cohort. And then the other thing is, the brilliant question you brought up is, do they stay here? Are they retained here? The data that we look at right now, we look at like census data, we look at Labor Bureau statistics, but the data is skewed because it includes a lot. There's a lot of variables there for us to really get a beat on Say Yes students. What I can tell you is that we've been putting efforts towards expanding On Point for College's career services. The Central New York Community Foundation just gave them a 2-year grant for $40,000 to provide internships. We've been working on developing and fostering relationships for students so they could transition from college to career. The Central New York Community Foundation just gave Believe in Syracuse a $25,000 scholarship to develop career mentors. And we're also working with any organization in the community to think differently about young professionals in the talent pool. I do understand across many industries there's a dearth of talent, but I think that we have the talent, there's just the connections aren't there. So I'll just speak from personal experience. I have family members that say they can't find a job. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? Just go out there, they're everywhere. But I'm in the mix, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's different for me. I hear people tell me about jobs all the time. So we're working on that part. Just to temper expectations, I'll say that it's a process. I mean, Say Yes has been around since 2009. And we're not like sitting pretty now, you know what I'm saying? So it's a process and we're working on it. But those are brilliant questions and we're thoughtful.
And just to take it a little further, I remember when Say Yes was introduced here, that the goal was to be able to help our kids have opportunity to go to school and potentially maybe get out a little bit. You know, they probably get more that, but at least reduce the chance of them getting into that. Right, because
Yes.
the Say Yes would supplement whatever they need. So with that, the first part of that question is what has been the demographic makeup of the student that applied to Say Yes in terms of race?
In terms of race?
In terms of race. Second, have you been able to track to see when they graduate how much student loan they end up with?
So by demographic, what has happened over time, and actually I can get that information, but just speaking off the top of my head, over time, we've seen an increase in African American students enrolling in college. We've seen an increase in the number of students completing the FAFSA application and an increase in Pell Grant awards. A Pell Grant award is an indicator of a student in need. So we have seen increases there. Where we haven't seen, and we've seen increases in high school graduation, you all are aware of that. Where we haven't seen an increase is in high school to college matriculation. So even though more students are graduating and more students are going to college, by percentage, it's really been static, gyrating between 63 and 65% of students that graduate, matriculate to college. So there's something a little deeper there that we're challenged to kind of figure out. As far as student loan debt, we don't track what their debt load is, but let's just say if a student received an opportunity grant, which was $2,000, and they received that a year, that's $8,000 that they don't have to pay back. If they received the tuition grant, which at a SUNY school, it's increased $300 over 7 or 8 years, with the exception of the last 3. It's $770 now. That's what, close to $30,000 they don't have to pay back, right? So we've definitely been making college more affordable. We have one of the most expansive scholarships in the country. So there's a couple of things I should say that I think you missed. We expanded our opportunity grant. It was $2,000 a year. It's now $3,000 a year. And we executed that in the fall of 2020 during COVID. We also have an award minimum. So you can imagine this. A student goes and they have X number of dollars in TAP, X number of dollars in Pell, and they have a $20 balance. From us, they would get $10 a semester. I could pull that out my pocket and give that to somebody. So we are executing this year. Everyone gets an award minimum of $1,000, which is $500 a semester. We also have a provision for students that are going to a SUNY school. If they live in an apartment or campus affiliated housing, they could provide a lease agreement to us and they'll still get the opportunity grant. We've expanded our choice grant, was supposed to be just for tuition for families that have 75K or above. We've expanded that to include the cost of attendance. So if they're getting an award from the school, let's say they go to Lemoyne and Lemoyne awarded them the presidential, whatever it is, that and the third. If their balance on tuition is $2,000, they'll still get the full $5,000 because they have room and board costs and things like that. There's, I don't know, over 300 promise programs in the country. I would say if you rated us against those, our program is at least top 5 as far as how expansive it is. We completed our campaign for our endowment. So we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I'm asking all of these questions, because I think for the longevity of the program, and considering that there are people generously donating to the mission, I think it would be worthwhile for them to see in paper what their dollars are doing to kids, and I think it would be helpful for you and for some of us that are cheerleaders of this program.
Thank you.
To see the numbers. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The graduation is something we've been trying to tackle. A route that we're pursuing is just looking at National Student Clearinghouse data. So our data, National Student Clearinghouse tracks them beyond whatever we could track them. The only caveat to that is it would be inclusive of all students. But our perspective is we really need to get a grasp on all students overall anyway. So that's probably a better indicator than just looking at Say Yes students that complete our application and everything else.
Mr. Turner, who provides the wraparound?
Well, it's not that complex, but it is. So the wraparound supports are managed by Onondaga County. The family support specialists do that through a nonprofit entity called Coordinated Care Services, Inc. And so they work for Coordinated Care Services, Inc. on behalf of Onondaga County, and there's a braided funding model that comes from the city, the county, the school district, and they pull down some state and federal funds. I mean, it's a lot more. I'm making it sound simple. It's probably a lot more complicated than that, but that's the basics.
Okay, and my last question is, I'm looking at the list. So there's no, I can't say this right, but I'm gonna do the best. Again, Excelsior dollars?
There's no what?
Excelsior.
Excelsior dollars.
No. Excelsior, we do not include Excelsior at all. When the state launched that initiative, I swear to goodness, they launched the initiative and we were trying to leverage that so we could be more expansive. And the language I received about them is, we are a last dollar scholarship, and that's kind of like a financial aid term. If you went out in the community and said that, a lot of people don't understand. So they came to Syracuse and we asked them about it, and they said, well, we're a last dollar scholarship. So for our purposes, if a student is receiving Say Yes, they're not going to get the Excelsior scholarship. It's more advantageous for them to get Say Yes anyways because we're not as restrictive. So in New York State, as far as I understand, I don't work for them, but as far as I understand, you need to live in New York State for as long as you receive the grant, and if you move away, then it turns into a loan.
For Excelsior? I think
Excelsior.
it's like after you graduate, it's 5 years.
So, I don't know.
I think it's 5 years after you graduate, you have to live
Like
here.
you said, then if they leave, they have.
It turns into a loan.
Right.
If you have to complete 30 credits a year, and they give you the summer to complete those credits if you don't meet those. But if you don't meet it, you lose it, and once you lose it, it's lost. With us, you just need to enroll full time, so that could be 12 credits. If you don't complete full time, we have a probationary period where you can still remain eligible. If you lose eligible because you didn't meet the GPA requirement or complete full time, you could regain eligibility. If you go a consecutive year, you just won't get Say Yes support. But if you go, let's say you go your freshman year, you bomb. Fall, spring, you still get a Say Yes award. If you go back your sophomore year and you get a 2.0 and you finish full time, that spring you'll be eligible for a Say Yes award. So we're a lot more. It's more advantageous for students to pursue Say Yes anyway.
Thank you. Do you have in your program any capacity, of course you have, but for students that don't choose to do 4 years of college and they may want to get into trade schools or some kind of certification to employment kind of?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. The pathway right now is students, if they go to like a 2-year school or Onondaga Community College and they are pursuing a certificate, we'll still award them. We are, the definition of college is it's like narrow and expansive at the same time. Our definition of college is, I guess I'd say rather traditional, but if they pursued like, let's say, I don't know, a for-profit ITT or something like that, we wouldn't support that, but I think we're trying to be, we're thinking about it.
So along those lines, assume that a student go to like BOCES, would they get assistance?
They could still get federal aid. I believe they could get state aid, but BOCES is not in the mix.
But Say Yes wouldn't go to that route.
Comes back to Council Paniagua, because Mr. Turner, we've been discussing this quite a bit, because when you're talking about trades, what Councilor just said, that's a 4-year education as well, to get these folks to be a journeyman. And I've been saying, since you've been at Say Yes, that we need to think about
We do.
maybe adding that, because I'm not ready to pay a plumber $285. So if we can get more plumbers into the trades, we have more people that's out here, economically.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you paid them $285.
We can't do that. That's why we need to get more people into the trades.
Yeah.
And Mr. Turner, I think it's important to recognize that not everybody want to go to traditional
Exactly.
4-year college. I have friends that after they graduated from college, they chose going to college. It's not for me, right? But they still want to advance themselves and gain skills. They were good with their hands. They enjoyed doing things with their hand, in which that was an opportunity to help them get the trade that they wanted. Some of them were great carpenters, mechanics, and some of them just didn't want to further, because when they look at the price, they're like, ooh.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
There's,
And that's a talent we are losing.
Their life situation may be different, and they may need to, get to work sooner.
Those are great points and areas of opportunity for us.
Because think about this, as a city and state and county, we're having a hard time hiring heavy-duty mechanics. So if we could push something through to get them on board, then, we all would benefit.
Yeah.
So maybe that gap between how many graduate to how many make it to college, could be going to trade schools or certification courses, and you don't keep track of that.
Right.
No. If they don't currently right now, if they don't complete our application.
I mean, there's always the student that takes an indefinite break, but, that wouldn't be the majority, I don't think.
Yeah, we also have a provision for students, if they decide that they want to take a gap year, they'll remain eligible for up to a year after high school graduation.
Oh, okay.
But that said, you all made great points. There's areas of opportunity. I wish I could say we're doing this, that, and the third, but I can't do that with it.
But you'll say that when you come back, we doing this, that, and the third.
Maybe I'll say that.
But a question about those trade programs, do they currently get Pell and TAP and other assistance?
They can, depending on, if they go to OCC, they're eligible for all that stuff. If they go to BOCES, they're eligible for federal aid. If they decide to pursue a certificate program at OCC, we got them.
Okay, so chances are they're already getting very well supported with those two other funders. Not that you wouldn't have significant monies to offer, because all money's important, but it might not be the bulk of what they need, right?
I would have to do an impact analysis to see what that is. But I don't think it would be a huge impact.
Not that you're not. I just mean financially.
Right.
TAP and Pell are pretty big buckets that and support, okay.
Accurate.
Any more questions? No? Are we all set?
Good.
Well, thank you, Meg.
Thank
for-
you.
I'll say
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.